you know that not all bobcats are named Bob? Welcome to Small Business Celebration. We're continuing our series on small business owners who are rising from recession. And our guest this week is building her business, developing her business, is the architect of her future. This is Small Business Celebration. Join us as we learn from successful business owners and successful business leaders about who they are, from where their business has grown, what they have learned, and where their successful business is going. I'm your host, Michael I. Roberts, and we're going to learn something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business. Welcome to Small Business Celebration, and our guest this week is Jeannie Bertolaccini, one of the principal architects with Ordiz-Melby Architects. Welcome to Small Business Celebration.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And for visionaries who don't know who are you, and what is it that you do?
Hi, my name is Jeannie Bertolaccini, and I'm one of the owners of Ordiz-Melby Architects here in Bakersfield.
One of the reasons we're chatting with Jeannie today is that, well, two main reasons. One is they do a tremendous, Ordiz-Melby that is, does a tremendous amount of building design and architecture for commercial buildings. And in the business world, that's kind of important. The other reason is eagle-eye visionaries may recall almost 2 years ago, Jeannie was a guest here on Small Business Celebration. And the reason we were talking to her then is she was going through a training program with Ordiz-Melby to become one of the owners of the program. And you can go ahead and check out that episode and learn more about how they did that process. And Jeannie had just become an owner in her own right here at Ordiz-Melby, but now it's been quite a ride since then, hasn't it?
Yes, welcome to ownership.
Well, and that's the thing that I wanted to find out from you, is that in the intervening 2 years, what have you discovered and learned about owning a very prominent architectural firm here in Kern County?
Well, it's keeping the doors open and then making decisions, that I didn't have to make just a few years ago, and always wondering what would they do or what would somebody else do. So really trying to keep our staff safe and making big decisions that really affect 25 people's lives.
Especially when you're dealing with incomplete information.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was unprecedented. So you can't go to something else and look at what happened last time. You can't look at history, and but it's been a road.
Right.
We've come a long way in the 2 years. Let's say that.
California is opening up, and it's looking like the rules are becoming flexible enough where there's a lot of openness that's able to happen within the businesses themselves. And so there's a lot of decisions that as business owners you have to make with your employees on who's staying and working at home, who's coming into the office, what are the protocols for company meetings and that sort of thing. And this is a scenario that a lot of business owners are trying to understand an effective plan. What's a good roadmap that you guys are using effectively to help decide what's best for the company while still taking in valid input from your employees?
Yeah, so when the pandemic first hit, we didn't really take input. We just, we shut down. We came and actually we had before that, leading that 2 weeks before March hit, some people were expressing they wanted to be home, and we were making that happen. So when the day came that the governor said everybody had to go home, we came in, we set up everybody's machines to have remote work, and we texted everybody at like 9 o'clock at night and said don't come in. And so it started off that everybody's just going home and we need to stay safe. And then as time went, there were a few people that decided they really needed to be in the office to do their work. So for about the last 15 months, we've had about 7 people in our office every day that by choice we're here. It just made it easier for the company to keep operating, and they weren't. It was harder for them to set up at home.
Well, and probably they just wanted to get out of the house.
Yeah, and it's been good. We have had, there haven't been any, and no one's come down with COVID out of the 7 that have been here. So that part's been really nice that we haven't had anybody get sick. But so now we've been trying to get back and try to get back to business the way it used to be, but clearly everybody's proven that we can work remote because we did it for so long. Nobody expected it to go on this long. So now it's like, okay, where do we want to land? What do we want to be? What kind of firm do we want to be? So we did put out a survey to staff, and we asked all types of questions about their work environment at home and whether they have the tools they need to do their job, and are there any distractions. It was kind of really checking out both ways, whether you wanted to be in the office or back at home. We gave different options for the type of schedule we should have when we come back, and also gave a place there to provide comments for just random what they felt. And we ended up being about 60% wanted to come back. There were some that were like, yeah, we'll do whatever, and then there was a small percentage that really didn't want to come back. And so how do we make that happen? We have, our staff is from, I think, 22 years old all the way up to 80.
Wow.
And so with everybody in a different place in
Right.
terms of this pandemic, and how do you make everybody happy? And that's not an easy thing to do. And so leadership has had a lot of meetings. We go to lunch every day. We haven't had a retreat actually 2 weeks ago because they're like, we need more time. So we came in on a Saturday and really spent the time talking about, how do we handle this? And to be honest, we decided we wanted to get back to everybody in the office 5 days a week, and so we built this transition period from June to August, which is what we're in now. We're just having 1 studio a week, so out of a 3-week period, staff's only required to be here 5 days, depending
Right.
on which studio they're in. So that's what we're doing now. But once we made that announcement about everybody coming back, that didn't go over so well with everybody.
Had to smooth a few feathers, as it were.
Yeah, and so and that's okay. I mean, we were prepared for that. We want to keep everybody happy. It's just how do we do that? And the way we sort of figured it, that the staff doesn't know what leadership knows.
Right.
That's a given. They don't see the numbers. They're not doing the billing. That kind of thing. And so they only know what they're doing, and they're
Right.
working from home successfully. But so we're planning a state of the office, and we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to be a little more transparent and allow them to see what does it cost us to be remote. They don't know what the software costs to allow us to do that, how it's affecting the timeline of the projects and our fees on those projects, and we are going to talk about that. But I think we're going to probably land in the middle and give a couple of remote optional days, that if it doesn't mean you have to be remote on those days, but if you would like to be, you can. And so I think that's going to satisfy everybody. So it's been a road.
Well, and it's a process.
Yeah.
Just like a lot of other things. And if there's one thing that architects get really good at, it's process.
Well, we're problem solvers,
Right.
that's what we do. I mean, a client comes to us with a problem, and we're supposed to fix that, and that's what we're trying to do here with staff. The clients need to be happy, because then we can't afford to pay staff,
Right.
but we need our staff to be happy, because then our clients aren't happy. So it's a little bit of all of that.
Find the right balance, as it were. But one of the things that's challenging Ordiz-Melby, in fact, it's challenging, as I understand, just about every architect in the world, is we're in a white-hot economy right now,
Yeah.
as far as architects goes. What is one of the big issues that a lot of business owners that come to you that want to either renovate their existing facility, or they want to build a new facility, or they want to consolidate a facility? They've got all these different options. What's one of the big pitfalls that you are trying to make sure that business owners understand with the architectural world as it now stands?
Yeah, everybody's pretty busy right now. We're busy. I have groups that I get together with that are architects in LA and San Francisco and East Coast, and they're all busy. And therefore, we're all trying to staff up. And there's only it's really hard to find architects. I mean, to find what we do, especially here in Kern County, because we don't have a university that that pumps out architects. We just hired somebody 2 weeks ago, a graduate from Berkeley. So we were really happy to get him. But yeah, so it's a hard thing to grow your staff without taking from somebody else's staff. So it's an interesting little thing in our world. But we are trying to explain to our clients that we need a little bit of time, because you know, I can rush my people to get a project done, but we also hire consultants, mechanical, electrical, structural engineers, landscape civil engineers, landscape architects. And so we have to work with their schedules too. So it's a whole team that comes together to provide a project. And right now, with everybody being busy, they just have to give us a little bit of time.
But I want to break ground tomorrow. I mean, I've already got the bank loan. Let's break ground tomorrow. What's the problem, you guys?
That's what I tell our clients. You know, we understand that by the time they come to an architect, they're ready to build. And sometimes we're looked at as the necessary evil, because they're ready to build and they go to the city and the city says, oh, no, you need plans, you need to hire an architect. It's like, oh, and then they realize that we have a process too that needs to be built into their construction schedule. And you know, it works out that, yeah, they're usually ready to go by the time they call an architect, and we just have to slow it down, because we don't want to skip any steps. There's a reason why we have a process, and they get what they want in the end, and everybody's happy, and that's how we want our projects to complete.
You don't want to have the $1 million mistake?
No.
And if visionaries want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Well, they can find us on our website at Ordiz-Melby.com. Got lots of our current projects on that website. And I'm on Facebook, Jeannie Bertolaccini, and then Ordiz-Melby also has a Facebook page and an Instagram page, and we have LinkedIn. We do a lot with LinkedIn. I find lots of my clients there on LinkedIn, so yeah.
That's where you find it. And if you enjoy Small Business Celebration, go ahead and like, subscribe, and notify, and leave a comment. We love the comments that you give us here on Small Business Celebration. In fact, the reason we're here with Jeannie is because of one of those comments. So, and when we come back, we're going to get more into the details, the background that Jeannie has, as well as some well-sought advice for many of our lady viewers who want to know a very specific answer to a very specific question.
My name is Josh D'Amigo, and I'm a Toastmaster from Ventura, California. Toastmasters has helped me build my career and relate to small business owners in a myriad of ways. Too many ways to list in 30 seconds. But the most impactful way that Toastmasters has helped me is to come up with believable answers to really bad questions on the fly. This is not just in my presentations at work, but it's also at city council meetings and at my local chamber. I invite you to join us at Toastmasters, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Toastmasters, the fun and relaxed group of leaders who will help you get ahead. Go to Toastmasters.org and click on the Find a Club button and set your business ahead of COVID and ahead of your competition. Go to Toastmasters.org and click on the Find a Club button. That's Toastmasters.org, and click on the Find a Club button today. We're here with Jeannie Bertolaccini, Principal Architect here at Ordiz-Melby Architects. And normally this is where I bring up a vision or question, but I made the mistake of asking about that question back in the last segment. So that just goes to show you we're not exactly perfect all the time. So in lieu of that, one of the things I normally do in the first segment is talk with the guest about their origin story. And this is one of the things I really enjoy about Jeannie. And tell us, Jeannie, from what part of town here in Bakersfield were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in East Bakersfield. Went to Washington and East Bakersfield High School.
For those that aren't familiar with Bakersfield, that is not exactly Ritzville or the high rent district here in town. And you mentioned that you had a passion and an interest in architecture from the very beginning, and yet you were the only girl in the class.
Yeah, I thank God for that kind of, because it prepared me for the real world, because that's
How
how
so?
jobs are. Our office has quite a few women, but typically, that wasn't the case throughout my early career. But I think luckily too, I had a very strong mom, and so being the only female didn't scare me. My mom was a single mom raising 4 kids, and she showed us strength. So. I starting junior high and high school, I was the only girl, and it didn't bother me. I think I'm lucky. I have a brother, and I hung out with my brother all the time, and so being one of only the only girl in the class didn't really bother me. So when I went away to school in Phoenix, I think there were 5 girls in the entire school, and so all my buddies were boys or men, young men, and so every time we had get-togethers and stuff, it was the majority were men, and then there were a few girls there, and so I think I just kind of learned to be one of the boys,
Sure.
And they'd say things that that boys say, and I sort of just let it go. Obviously I spoke up if it bothered me, but I learned to kind of not put too much pressure on them with me being around, and I think that allowed me to fit in. But it definitely prepared me for the workforce, because everywhere that I went after that, it was actually my early jobs were a lot of older men engineers, and I was this young 21-year-old girl.
And what does this woman know about anything? I've been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah. But there was one older guy that every time I would talk, he would talk over me, and I thought it was, I guess he just doesn't want to know what a young girl has to say because I was female or something. But eventually I think I figured out it was just his way. It didn't, I could have been a young boy or a young man, and he would have done the same thing. But
it wasn't personal, it just happened to be who he was.
I think so. And I like I said, I've been really lucky in all my other jobs. I never had a boss that was inappropriate. I used to think I don't even know that they know that I'm female, and that's a good thing. I was treated the same as everybody else, and you sort of realize that you just need to show that you know what you're talking about, and then you'll earn their respect, and then nobody questions you.
When the proof is in the pudding, people know how it tastes.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is, however, something that you're still facing to a certain degree today.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You were telling me a story just off camera a little bit ago about one of these meetings that you had not long ago, and take us through that experience.
Yeah, the majority of the time, because we do construction administration work, which means we're in the construction trailer while the project's under construction. We go to weekly meetings there, and it's the contractor, the owners, and for the most part, the owners are still men, that the people that they put in charge of their facility are still men, and then the contractors are always men. Sometimes there's a female in the room. So yeah, it's still that case, but I don't think even it doesn't bother me, and for a long time I didn't even acknowledge it. I never would look around and go, oh, I'm the only female. It's not until kind of this talk about women entering men, dominated fields that I did start noticing. I'm like, oh yeah, that's me.
Sure.
And so I do pay attention now, but I pay attention in a way that I'm really proud. When I look around and there's all these men who have been doing it a long time and know what they're talking about, and then there I am, that you always sort of have a little bit of imposter syndrome. But yeah, I feel really proud that I'm in a room with all the men and treated no differently, other than when I do something dumb, that's no fun. One day I was walking out of the construction trailer in my heels, and I tripped. I think I thought I was on the last step, and I still had another step to go. And Danny was there with me, and a couple other contractor guys with me walking out at the same time. And I probably wouldn't have been as embarrassed if it were all females, but it was all men. And well, thank God they helped me get up. But so you can't be afraid of that, though. That's okay. That's okay. That that they all. That's when you become a female. They're like, oh no, let me help you get up. So yeah, that's a little embarrassing, but that's okay. That's what life is.
Sure. One of the other things, though, that I really enjoy about your story is because it's not over yet.
No.
And it's one of the things that you alluded to in the last segment is that you've been the leader now for 3 years. And this is a process, is it not?
Yeah. You know, you can wear the hat, but the leadership hat, but it doesn't mean you have all the answers, and it doesn't mean that you're a good leader, and it doesn't mean that you know how to lead. You know, I worked really hard to get here, but I have no experience. You know, prior to this, I had no experience in staffing and.
So what are you doing to improve yourself, improve your leadership skills? What are you doing to become the leader that fits the hat?
Every morning I subscribe to a lot of podcasts.
Sure.
But a lot of them are related either to architecture or leadership, and always looking for advice on how to better lead, reading articles. You know, I get emails, and I'll always hit the link to go find an article that'll give some tidbit advice. A lot of it's been remote work, but that's when your leadership skills really become highlighted. But yeah, so I think at one point I called myself a sponge. I'm just trying to take everything I can to learn how to do this thing, and I want to do it well. I've got a lot of people counting on us. I've got to learn how to bring work in, keep my staff motivated, and then keep them growing. You know, we had a lunch with one of our staff the other day, and I mentioned, it's our job to grow you into a good architect someday, because the guys that we have now, the more experienced guys that are architects, they're going to be retiring.
Right.
And if I don't grow these younger staff and make good architects out of them, we're going to really be hurting. And so hopefully they all see that everything that we, all three of us leaders, do, it's to help that process, keep the work coming, give them good projects that they can learn from, and I think we're doing that. We've got a lot of nice big projects out there right now, and but keeping the staff excited and motivated and willing to learn. And
how are you doing that?
It's really hard during this remote time, making sure we have every non-licensed person has a mentor in the office, and so they work under a licensed architect, and then really trying to encourage screen sharing and reviewing plans like that, even though we're all remote. But we have a plan set up for when we come back to start doing regular education. Sometimes it's hard to learn something unless you work on that thing, but not everybody's working on the same thing.
Right.
So we want to give them that knowledge even before they need it. So we're going to try to do, we call it chips and tips. We have
okay.
chips,
all right.
and they learn either about software, or we're going to start bringing in some of that architecture, not design, but details, and what does it mean when you put a ceiling on it could be a ceiling, what are the different ways a ceiling should look, or
Sure.
putting a light fixture on that ceiling, what type, so trying to go through all those steps with them.
These development steps that you're talking about are all a process that you went through in becoming an architect. And for you became a licensed architect kind of later in life.
Yeah.
You didn't do it at 21.
No.
And guide us through that process for you.
Yeah, it's a lot of determination. You have to really want it. And we have a lot of young people in our office who are at that point where they could start taking those tests to work towards licensure. And are putting it off, and I completely understand that. Because,
you did it yourself?
Yeah, nobody
Right.
wants to really spend their evening studying. But in the architecture world, there's 6 exams that you have to take, and once you pass all of those exams, then there's one more in California. It's called the California Supplemental exam, and you take that test, and then you are a licensed architect. But not everybody passes on the first time, so it really is a process, and it's probably about a 5-year process for the average person that's, kind of sticking with it.
Did you do it in 5?
I did not do it in 5. I did it, I think I say 13, 14 years is from beginning to end when I did it. But, I would take time off because I was a mom of 3, and that's kind of a big thing right now. Like on Facebook, there's groups, Mothers in Architecture, the mothers kind of start banding together because that's a struggle trying to find time to study when you're, making breakfast and dinner. And so, just coming up with a schedule that works for you. And even dads, dads have the same thing as well. Or people without kids, they have other things they'd rather be doing. So you really have to kind of get your mindset and say, okay, I'm going to do it and go for it. And for me, there was a period where I lost exams because there's a 5-year rolling clock, and if you don't have them all passed, then you lose and you start kind of all over. And when that happened to me, 5 of the exams that I had passed all disappeared off my record.
Oh no.
And I, after I cried and wiped away the tears, I thought, maybe I don't need a license, because a lot of people work in an architectural firm and they're doing drawings and running projects without a license, and I knew I could do that, but I told myself, or remembered back to that little 6th grade girl that said, I want to be an architect, and I didn't want to disappoint her, and so I realized that there's no deadline to your dream, and you can be 49, you can be 35, you can be 21, not too many 21-year-olds get their license, but so there's no deadline to it, and that's when I realized, what am I thinking? Why would I give up? That doesn't make any sense. And so I stuck with it, and about 1.5 years later, I was done and called myself a licensed architect. But also all the leadership transition stuff that was going on here, I realized I can be even more than I thought I could be in this firm because I have that opportunity, but I don't have that opportunity without a license. I mean, I had to be a licensed architect to do this, and so, it was a road, but I did it, and don't give up. That's what I try to tell young people is, and especially girls, because we get married and have kids, and I tell them do it before you do all of that, but it is a little bit harder for women when they're getting married and having kids and trying to run a house, and so it's okay, take your time, but don't give up.
And we'll be right back. Jeannie, you have used Small Business Celebration, in your case, the podcast, very effectively to promote Ordiz-Melby. What'd you do, and how'd it work out for you?
Yeah, so Mike Russo, he teaches small business entrepreneurship class at CTEC, and asked me to come speak to his class of all girls. There were 12 girls in his class. He wanted a female business owner, so I sent him the link to the podcast ahead of time, and he had his girls listen to it. That gave them some background about not only Ordiz-Melby, but about Jeannie Bertolaccini, and it made for a great presentation because then they already had a background on me. So thank you for that, Michael Roberts.
Use Small Business Celebration to help market and promote your business, and reach out to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram today. We're here with Jeannie Bertolaccini, Principal Architect here at Ordiz-Melby Architects. And our visionary question of the segment comes from Sahar, who asks, how do you defy social expectations, especially in social and networking events, situations that are predominantly male?
That's a tough one.
Okay.
But I do find myself in that situation often. I went to an event one time and I knew nobody. I went alone. A lot of times we go in groups, but I went alone and didn't know anybody. Walked in and I went, wow. And everybody was in little clusters chatting. I'm like, I don't know anybody here.
Sure.
I looked around and there were 3 men talking. So it's kind of funny. I didn't think of it until now that instead of finding a group of women, I approached men and I just went up to them and introduced myself. Turned out they worked for Kern High School District and we're doing all kinds of work together. And so it was like, I was like, oh, well, that was easy. I got really lucky. But so yeah, I mean, just don't be afraid to just go up to somebody and introduce yourself, man or woman. It doesn't really matter. That happens often in my world. Yeah.
What is something that has happened to you along the way that pointed out, yeah, I shouldn't do that again?
Yeah, there was another event. So I attend these conferences for our software, and they're predominantly men. There's still lots of women now. It's getting a whole lot better out there in my world, but I would say it's probably 70% men. And one of the evening events was a dinner cruise. So I'm a heels and a dress kind of gal, and so I packed my dress and my heels for this dinner cruise and got on the boat, and pretty much everybody else wore exactly what they wore to the conference during that day, and I was kind of the only one in this dinner cocktail.
For the occasion, as it were.
Yeah, and it was awkward. Once you're on the boat, you can't run back to the room and go change. But I got lots of compliments, so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to make the best of it. I forced myself to think they're just all underdressed. I'm the only one. I'm dressed appropriately, but. So, and also because it was a little black dress, I was fearful that the other women would think, that I was dressing just to try to impress the men, and that wasn't it at all. The dress wasn't revealing or anything. But you do learn as you go. I definitely was not trying to impress the men, and actually the ladies that I spoke with were all just fine about it and giving me compliments and said I looked great. And so, you live and learn, and I don't know what I would have done differently. You know what I mean? I probably still would have dressed somehow different for the evening event. But when you're a female and you're going to be around a lot of men, you're always trying to second guess that. And I don't think men have to think about that. I don't think they ever think, what are the ladies going to think, And so, but that's one of the downfalls that we women have to think about before we, not just getting dressed, but it's anything. It's how you do your hair and your makeup. And, hoops used to be a bad thing. They used to say that, in the professional world, women shouldn't wear hoops. Well, I'm wearing my hoops.
But this is all part of your own personal growth, and you're learning from the mistakes and the errors, and you're very cognizant of doing this. Is this an ongoing process of personal development for you?
Yeah, you're always trying to grow, and learn and learn off other people, but learn from your mistakes, obviously. But I think that's something that is inevitable. I'm more mature today than I was when I first entered this field, and I think about that young little girl that was working with all these old men, and like I said, lucky for me, I had a good group of people that I always worked with. I didn't have any big issues to be concerned about, but you just need to learn from it. Don't let things shy you away. Don't say, I'm not going to go because it's going to be all men. You never know who's in that room that can, give you that job that you're looking for, or that project, or you want to meet as many people as you can meet, regardless of sex or age or Sure. Anybody can be a customer. Yep.
Anybody can. Yeah. What does the future of Ordiz-Melby look like?
I'm excited for our future. I think we're in a really good position. We've got lots of opportunity for new projects. It's busy out there for everybody, so we're not all fighting for the same thing. As long as we can find staff, I'd love to grow the staff and double it over the next 5 years. The goal is to make Bill and Danny proud and see what, I want them to see the firm grow into maybe what they envisioned it, when they were both the owners. And keep the staff that we have. We love the staff that we have. We don't want to lose anybody. Everybody's doing a good job and wanting to grow with us.
What makes you wake up every morning and open your business?
Call me a weirdo or something, but I get excited about coming to work each day, or what the day holds, and sometimes I even start the night before. That's how excited I am.
Okay, sure.
But no, our days are different every day. I think I'm going to come and put a proposal together on this project, and then I walk in the door, I open my email, and there's something else that I need to do. So I don't always know what my day is unless I've got a lot of meetings lined up, but really excited about what we do here, and you know, watching our projects come together every day. Construction moves forward, the design moves forward on a job, so every day we're getting closer and closer to somebody's dream. You know, so we're all excited to do our jobs each day, I think.
Sure, sure. What advice do you have for the business owner that's struggling right now?
Oh, there's always something, you know. There's always dark clouds in our world. Either something got left off the drawings, or the contractor did it differently, or and so it's finding a solution. Like I said before, we're problem solvers, and so it's like that Rubik's Cube, right? You know that there's an answer. Right. You just have to find it. And so when I get the call from the owner, something's not quite right, we just have to move forward and try to fix it. So yeah, that's the fun part, right? It's not fun if you're not making someone's day and coming up with a good answer.
Jeannie, this has been a privilege. Thank you very much for joining us here on Small Business Celebration.
Thank you so much for coming to see me again.
How can visionaries get in touch with you?
Ordiz-Melby Architects.com, that's our website, and you will find me on there. My email address, it's Jeannie Bertolaccini at Ordiz-Melby.com, and our LinkedIn site is very active, Ordiz-Melby there as well, and then Facebook, and every now and then Instagram.
Sounds good. And I'll be right back with my final thought.
My name is Josh D'Amigo, and I'm a Toastmaster from Ventura, California. Toastmasters has helped me build my career and relate to small business owners in a myriad of ways. Too many ways to list in 30 seconds. But the most impactful way that Toastmasters has helped me is to come up with believable answers to really bad questions on the fly. This is not just in my presentations at work, but it's also at city council meetings and at my local chamber. I invite you to join us at Toastmasters, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Toastmasters, the fun and relaxed group of leaders who will help you get ahead. Go to Toastmasters.org and click on the Find a Club button and set your business ahead of COVID and ahead of your competition. Go to Toastmasters.org and click on the Find a Club button. That's Toastmasters.org, and click on the Find a Club button today. One of my favorite stories from ancient Greece is the story of Pygmalion. You see, Pygmalion was the best sculptor the world had ever seen. His creations out of marble looked truly lifelike, and the beauty he could carve out of marble was extraordinary. The problem was Pygmalion was lonely. He could never find the woman of his dreams. Well, the god Zeus felt pity for Pygmalion, and he asked Pygmalion to carve out of marble the perfect woman. Pygmalion did. And the statue was stunning and gorgeous, and Zeus brought that statue to life. A companion, the perfect companion for Pygmalion. At first, Pygmalion was overjoyed. He had the woman of his dreams. She was perfect in beauty and thought and deed. And there was nothing that she could do that wasn't perfect. After a while, Pygmalion got bored with this creation because she was perfect in thought, word, deed, and her beauty was absolute perfection. And it began to grate on Pygmalion. And over time, Pygmalion went insane. All because his companion was absolutely perfect in every way. She did not have a single flaw to make her interesting. I have spoken to many business owners, and I've heard them lament and wish they could have the perfect business or the perfect customer. If you've ever had a day where you've had an angry customer, or you've had a process or product that didn't turn out so well, or an employee that didn't interpret your mind reading exactly the way that you wanted, well, congratulations. You do have the perfect business. You have the perfect customer. Because if you had the perfect business and the perfect customer like Pygmalion did, there would be no flaws, there would be no challenges, and it would not be interesting. I hope you enjoyed our conversation this week here at Ordiz-Melby and Jeannie Bertolaccini. And I hope you learned something from our conversation that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business. And we'll see you again next week.
I mean, that excites me, and I hate to talk about the testing process with her, because it's like, I never want to scare anybody, but it's like, gosh, this young girl, is where I was back then, although she doesn't have drafting offered at her school, like I did. So she's going to have to figure all that out in college. But I gave her a tour and sat her in my office and told her, what it takes, and we really just wanted to show her what we do, and took her around, and some of the other people showed them in the computer and showed her what we do. And but I love that, what her mom emailed me, I got it on a Friday, like 10 minutes before 5, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. I love that she found me, because I'm like, she doesn't even know how passionate I am about young girls, and
Right.
talking to young girls. She had no idea, but I'm like, oh, bring her in, let's find a time. So